You know those rare individuals who burn so brightly, so defiantly, that they leave an indelible scorch mark on the very fabric of culture. Those who refuse to fit into any neat category, shattering expectations with every move. Today we're going to delve into the extraordinary, often misunderstood, and ultimately tragic life of one such iconoclast, Wendy O. Williams. If the late 1970s and 1980s had a definitive queen of punk rock mayhem, a high priestess of sonic destruction, it was undeniably her. Yet beneath the legendary bleached blonde mohawk, the daring, often shocking stage outfits, and the infamous chainsaw massacres of guitars, lay a soul of profound complexity, fierce independence, and a vulnerability that few outside her closest circle ever truly grasped. She wasn't merely a performer, she was a living, breathing testament to radical self-expression, a pioneer who dared to push boundaries until they shattered, and a human being who, in her final years, sought a peace that the world, in its relentless clamor, seemed unable to offer. Her story is not just about music. It's a visceral exploration of artistry, rebellion, gender, and the relentless search for authenticity in a world obsessed with conformity. To truly understand the visceral impact of Wendy O. Williams, we must immerse ourselves in the cultural ferment of the 1970s. Picture a landscape where the vibrant counterculture of the 1960s had begun to fragment. Mainstream rock, once a rebellious force, had largely evolved into a polished corporate spectacle of stadium shows and lengthy, intricate guitar solos. On the other stage, disco ruled the airwaves, its slick, synchronized beats providing a glittering escapism. But in the grimy, raw underbelly of urban centers, particularly New York City, a fierce counter-narrative was brewing. The city itself was a character, financially distressed, gritty, yet pulsating with an untamed artistic energy. From the legendary Bowery clubs like CBGB to the underground art squats, a new sound, sharp and unpolished, began to emerge. Punk rock. This wasn't about musical virtuosity. It was about raw energy, direct confrontation, and a furious rejection of anything corporate, anything complacent. It was loud, it was fast, and it was undeniably angry. It was a guttural scream against the polished veneer of societal norms, demanding a return to visceral, unadulterated emotion. This era was less about musical harmony and more about discordant honesty, a cultural landscape ripe for a figure as explosive and uncompromising as Wendy Orlean Williams. Wendy's journey to becoming the undisputed queen of shock rock was anything but conventional, steeped in a restless spirit and an innate defiance that manifested long before she ever picked up a microphone. Born in Webster, New York in 1949, she was a true wanderer from a young age. By her mid-teens, the confines of traditional life proved too restrictive, and she left home at 16, embarking on a nomadic existence that would shape her fiercely independent spirit. Her early life was a mosaic of diverse, often challenging experiences. She journeyed through Florida as a go-go dancer, honing an innate sense of stage presence and an understanding of physical expression. She ventured through Europe, hitchhiking across continents, learning self-reliance on the open road. Upon returning to the United States, she explored various unconventional paths, even immersing herself in a communal living arrangement and working as a macrobiotic chef, embracing alternative lifestyles long before they entered the mainstream consciousness. These formative years, untethered from the expectations of a conventional upbringing, instilled in her an unwavering authenticity and a deep-seated resilience that would later define her public persona. It was in the vibrant, anarchic crucible of New York City in the mid-1970s that Wendy's path truly converged with destiny. The city, a melting pot of struggling artists and audacious visionaries, was fertile ground for radical expression. There she met Rod Swenson, an enigmatic Yale graduate, artist, and impresario with a keen eye for raw talent and a theatrical sensibility. Swenson, who had operated an experimental erotic theater on 42nd Street known as Captain Kink's Theater, recognized in Wendy an explosive, untamed power that transcended mere performance. He saw not just a singer, but a force of nature waiting to be unleashed. Together they forged the Plasmatics, a band conceived not just to create music, but to dismantle the very foundations of rock and roll, to push the boundaries of artistic expression until they shattered. The Plasmatics erupted onto the scene in 1978, a cataclysmic force unlike anything witnessed before. Their live performances were not merely concerts. They were meticulously orchestrated acts of rebellion and destruction, a visceral assault on the senses. At the core of this controlled chaos was Wendy, with her signature bleached blonde mohawk, often clad in little more than strategically placed electrical tape or shaving cream, and a defiant sneer that dared the world to look away. She didn't just sing, she embodied a raw primal energy, a guttural scream that gave voice to a generation's collective frustration. On stage, the band would systematically destroy televisions, blow up speakers, and in their most iconic act, Wendy herself would famously wield a chainsaw to cleave guitars in half or drive a car into a stack of roaring amplifiers. These weren't cheap gimmicks. They were profound symbolic acts of defiance, a furious rejection of consumerism, of rock star opulence, and of the passive, detached audience experience. Wendy O. Williams became the living embodiment of punk rock's destructive ethos, a walking, breathing manifesto against complacency. But behind the shocking spectacle, there was an almost academic level of artistic intent. Rod Swenson, the Plasmatics manager and primary creative architect, meticulously planned every aspect of their performances, ensuring each act of destruction was deliberate, each shock precisely calibrated for maximum impact. Wendy was not a mere puppet in this grand design. She was a willing, powerful, and equally visionary collaborator, channeling her own innate rebellious spirit into the band's theatrical assaults. Her unyielding commitment to their vision meant she was routinely arrested for obscenity, for indecent exposure, for disturbing the peace. Each mugshot, each court appearance, only served to amplify her legend, solidifying her status as rock's most dangerous woman. She faced down moral crusaders, baffled police officers, and a bewildered music establishment with unflinching defiance. Her legal battles, far from hindering her career, inadvertently cemented her as a symbol of anti-establishmentarianism, a punk rock martyr of sorts. One aspect of Wendy's time with the Plasmatics that is rarely discussed in detail is the immense physical toll her performances exacted. While the explosions and chainsawing were carefully choreographed, Wendy's commitment to the visceral nature of the show meant she often pushed her body to its absolute limits. She regularly executed daring stage dives into crowds, often without knowing if anyone would be there to catch her. She sustained numerous injuries, broken ribs, concussions, lacerations, yet she rarely complained or allowed them to hinder a performance. For her, it transcended mere pain. It was about genuine connection, about pushing the physical boundaries of performance art, about giving every ounce of her being to the audience and to the band's uncompromising message. There's a particularly poignant anecdote from a show in London where, amidst the usual pandemonium, a visibly shaken fan managed to get backstage after the show. He quietly asked Wendy why she subjected herself to such grueling physical punishment. Wendy, stripping off her sweat-soaked, torn clothes, revealing fresh bruises, simply looked at him and said, "Because it's real, and if it's not real, what's the point?" This unwavering commitment to authenticity, even at tremendous personal cost, was a defining characteristic of her artistry. She wasn't merely performing a role, she was living out her art, bleeding for it, night after night. Another often overlooked detail of Wendy's persona was the unexpected intellectual rigor that underpinned her shock rock image. Away from the stage, Wendy was remarkably articulate and surprisingly well-read in interviews, a stark contrast to the wild, almost primal public persona she projected. She harbored deep passions for animal rights and environmentalism, themes she subtly yet powerfully wove into her music and stage presence. She once famously stated, "If people want to call me an animal, that's fine. Animals are beautiful, pure, and instinctive. Humans are the destructive ones." This philosophical depth often caught interviewers off guard, who expected a one-dimensional, unhinged punk rocker. She challenged preconceived notions, not only through her actions but through her profound, insightful commentary, demonstrating a keen understanding of social issues and a deep-seated disillusionment with the hypocrisy of conventional society. She viewed her performances as a potent form of social commentary, a primal scream designed to jolt people out of their complacency and challenge their ingrained beliefs. Beyond the stage, her life was marked by a surprising discipline. Rod Swenson, her manager and partner, often recounted how Wendy was a consummate professional, meticulous about her craft. She would work out for hours every day, run 6 miles daily, and was a strict vegetarian, deeply committed to health food. On tour, she'd ensure the entire band was well fed with healthy, unprocessed meals, a stark contrast to the typical rock and roll road diet. This internal discipline, a quiet counterpoint to her public anarchy, highlights a woman deeply invested in her physical and mental well-being, even as her artistic expression bordered on the self-destructive. After the Plasmatics disbanded, the late 1980s saw Wendy O. Williams embark on a solo career, a period marked by attempts to evolve her sound while fiercely retaining her rebellious spirit. Her 1984 album, Wow, produced by none other than Gene Simmons of Kiss, showcased a heavier, more metal-influenced sound. In a move that surprised many, the album earned her a Grammy nomination for Best Female Rock Vocal Performance, a powerful testament to her undeniable vocal prowess, a raw, guttural force capable of both snarling defiance and soaring, albeit gritty, power. This solo phase represented her attempt to bridge the seemingly unbridgeable gap between raw punk energy and mainstream rock appeal, a daring artistic tightrope walk that few artists from her genre even considered. She toured with major acts and, in one of the most bizarre and unexpected turns of her career, even appeared in a famous Where's the Beef commercial for a fast food chain. This seemingly out-of-character cameo highlighted her willingness to experiment beyond the confines of punk, and perhaps a pragmatic need to sustain herself financially in a music industry that rarely rewarded uncompromising artistry. Despite these forays into broader appeal, Wendy never truly compromised her fundamental artistic integrity. She ventured into acting most notably in the cult film Reformed Schoolgirls, 1986, where she played a tough, rebellious inmate, a role that seemed almost an extension of her real-life persona. She also made appearances on popular TV shows like MacGyver. However, the same fiercely independent spirit that fueled her explosive early career also made it incredibly difficult for her to thrive within the more rigid commercial structures of mainstream entertainment. She found solace and authenticity away from the constant glare of celebrity, increasingly preferring to live off the grid, closer to nature, far from the relentless scrutiny and pressures that had defined her public life. This profound preference for solitude and simplicity, a quiet personal rebellion against the very spotlight she once commanded, marked a significant, yet often overlooked shift in her personal journey. The controversies surrounding Wendy O. Williams were as notorious and explosive as her stage antics. As a woman operating fearlessly in a male-dominated genre, she pushed the boundaries of sexuality and performance in ways that were often misinterpreted or outright condemned as purely provocative. Was her stage nudity a powerful statement of empowerment, a reclamation of her body, or simply a calculated shock tactic? For Wendy, it was often about shedding societal expectations, both literally and metaphorically. She viewed her body as a tool for artistic expression, a vessel to convey strength and defiance, not an object to be consumed by the male gaze. Yet critics and moral watchdogs frequently lambasted her as a dangerous influence, focusing solely on the superficial shock rather than the profound artistic and philosophical intent. There remains an ongoing historical debate about whether the Plasmatics' theatricality ultimately overshadowed their musical contributions. Were they true punk innovators who used spectacle to amplify their message, or merely masters of theatrical showmanship? Perhaps the truth lies in the intricate interplay between the two. Their impact was undeniably profound, forcing urgent conversations about censorship, artistic freedom, and the very definition of what rock and roll could and should be. Another complex layer to Wendy's story was her profound and enduring relationship with Rod Swenson. He was not just her manager and producer, he was her artistic collaborator, her protector, and her life partner for over 2 decades. For years, their relationship was intensely symbiotic, with Swenson meticulously shaping her public image and career trajectory. Some critics have argued that he exerted undue control, molding Wendy into his artistic vision, perhaps even exploiting her raw energy. Conversely, many who knew them closely contend that Wendy was an active, willing, and powerful participant in every decision, fully in command of her choices, and that Swenson merely provided the necessary framework for her to unleash her authentic, unadulterated self. Regardless of the precise dynamic, their partnership was undeniably instrumental in forging the legend of Wendy O. Williams. It is clear that without Swenson's singular vision and strategic mind, the Plasmatics would not have achieved the infamous notoriety they did. But equally, without Wendy's fearless embodiment of that vision, her unwavering courage and primal scream, it would have remained just a concept, a theoretical blueprint. Their bond transcended the typical artist-manager relationship, becoming a true partnership in artistic rebellion. In her later life, after largely withdrawing from the music scene, Wendy found a deep connection with the natural world. She moved to a secluded home in Storrs, Connecticut, embracing a simple, self-sufficient existence far removed from the explosive stages and flashing lights of her past. She became a licensed wildlife animal rehabilitator, tending to injured animals with a gentle compassion that stood in stark contrast to her public image. She worked at a natural foods co-op, finding a quiet purpose in advocating for healthy living and environmental consciousness. This desire for peace, for quiet solitude, for a life deeply connected to the rhythms of nature was a poignant and often overlooked facet of her personality, a quiet rebellion against the very chaos she once embraced. The tragic end of Wendy O. Williams' life on April 6, 1998, by suicide, sent shockwaves through the punk and rock communities, casting a profound shadow over her formidable legacy. It forced many fans, critics, and even her closest friends to grapple with the stark contradiction of a woman who seemed so invincible, so utterly in control, succumbing to such private, internal despair. Her death sparked urgent conversations about mental health, the immense pressures of fame, and the often unseen battles that even the most powerful and seemingly indestructible individuals silently face. Was it the cumulative toll of a life lived on the extreme edge? Was it a long-standing struggle with chronic depression that had been meticulously hidden beneath layers of punk rock bravado and defiance? Rod Swenson, in the years following her death, spoke candidly about her decades-long battle with profound depression, a quiet struggle that very few were privy to. He described her final years as a desperate quest for tranquility, a deep, almost spiritual connection with the natural world, but also a persistent, agonizing, internal conflict. This private agony, this quiet desperation stands in stark, almost heartbreaking contrast to her public image as an indestructible, take-no-prisoners force of nature. In a final heartbreaking act of control, she left behind detailed instructions, including where to find her, a love letter to Swenson, and requests regarding her wishes, demonstrating a meticulousness even in her final moments. She explicitly stated she did not want to be put on life support, underscoring her fierce desire for agency, even in death. Wendy O. Williams' legacy is immense, complex, and undeniably multifaceted. She didn't just smash guitars, she shattered pervasive gender barriers in rock music, proving unequivocally that women could be just as fierce, just as destructive, and just as commanding on stage as any man, often more so. She redefined the very parameters of live performance, pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable and daring audiences to confront their own inhibitions and preconceived notions. Her unapologetic rejection of societal norms and her fearless self-expression paved the way for countless female artists who dared to be different, from the raw energy of riot girl bands to contemporary pop stars who embraced theatricality and shock value as part of their artistic identity. She was, in essence, punk rock personified, a raw nerve ending plugged directly into the throbbing pulse of the cultural zeitgeist. Beyond the immediate shock and awe of her performances, Wendy O. Williams represented a profound and unwavering commitment to authenticity. In an entertainment industry increasingly driven by carefully crafted images and commercial viability, she remained fiercely true to herself, even when it meant alienation, legal battles, or financial hardship. She showed us through her actions and her art that true artistic expression often demands immense courage, unwavering defiance, and a radical willingness to break things, sometimes quite literally. Her influence reverberates deeply through music, fashion, and performance art, serving as a timeless reminder of the potent power of rebellion and the enduring importance of challenging the status quo. Artists across genres continue to cite her as an inspiration, not just for her stage presence, but for her uncompromising spirit and her willingness to be truly, terrifyingly herself. Her story is a potent and enduring reminder that behind every larger-than-life figure, every defiant icon, lies a complex human being, grappling with their own unique vulnerabilities and desperately searching for meaning and peace. Wendy O. Williams lived a life that was extreme, exhilarating, often terrifying, and ultimately heartbreakingly human. She dared to be different, to be loud, to be ugly by conventional standards, to be beautiful in her own radical way, all on her own fiercely independent terms. Her voice, a guttural roar that could cut through the noise of complacency and pierce through superficiality, still echoes powerfully today. It serves as a visceral call to arms for anyone who feels stifled by convention, a resounding testament to the enduring power of raw, unbridled self-expression and the profound impact one individual can have by simply refusing to compromise. That's a wrap for today's video. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button, drop us a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss our new content. Thanks for watching.